A new video? But it's only been like 2 months since the last video. Looks like someone's turned on the old content hose. How do we turn it off? So you've clicked on a YouTube video. They've said they're going to sculpt Batman, but they've blurred him out in the thumbnail preview, so now you're patiently waiting until the end for the big reveal, and what the f***? Well, at least they got his lips right. But I'm not here to waste your time, so here's my reference image and here's my final image. Now you get to decide whether or not this is worth your valuable life minutes.
The power is yours!
I vote no. I mean, yes. Damn it. First things first, we're gonna need an image of Batman. Log on to the internet's 6th most popular search provider, DuckDuckGo. And just as quick as your fingertips can type it out, smash in hot Batman.
This is not suitable for work. Are you sure? Okay.
Grab whatever image tickles your fancy and uh-oh, looks like someone's ready to sculpt. One quick word of warning though, try to put a bit of effort into actually finding your reference image. You don't want to get like 10-20 hours into a project and then no longer enjoy what you're creating, because the most likely scenario there is that you'll just give up. I actually started out using this reference and I got it to this stage before I realized, this sucks. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is you can't take a really cool composition, remove absolutely everything from it, and then be like, this'll still work. But what you can do is take all of your Batman bits that you've already created and then just rearrange them into your new Batman.
Well, if it isn't my old friend, Mr. McGregor, with a leg for an arm and an arm for a leg.
There were so many different incarnations of Batman out there, you're probably wondering which specific Batman am I actually sculpting? For instance, is it Ben Affleck? And if it is Ben Affleck, which version of Ben Affleck are we actually talking about here? Is it buff Ben Affleck? Is it drinking Ben Affleck? Is it this hungry little fellow who ate Ben Affleck? All fantastic guesses, but it is none of the above. And that's because the Batman that I'm actually creating is none other than Bruce Timm's Batman, the co-creator of Batman the Animated Series, as well as the co-creator of Harley Quinn, who went on to become one of DC's most popular and profitable characters. I myself once created my own character and I called him Hairy Harry, but you don't see me banging on about it. Moving on, I think it's finally time for the return of a fan favorite segment, Fun Facts. Fact number 1. Batman's parents are dead. Oh, hang on 1 minute. Yeah, this has been mislabeled. Yeah, this should be under sad facts. Also, that was the only fact. Moving on. Now, if you're anything like me, then your introduction to Batman probably started with Tim Burton's films. I had no idea Batman even had a rule about killing, so when he started lighting people on fire and strapping bombs to their chest, I was like, get him, Batman, get him. It probably wasn't until Christopher Nolan's films came out that I was like, hang on a minute, what do you mean Batman doesn't kill?
Yeah, I know. It's like my one rule.
He's probably one of the most prolific murderers in Gotham. Just ask this guy. Oh, wait a minute, you can't. He is dead. However, I think you could argue that Tim Burton's films are adapted from a different version of Batman. It's not like he's never killed in the comics before. Least we forget the time that he punched a man into a vat of acid and then was like, good riddance. But then we get to Zack Snyder's Batman, a director whose fans bullied the Oscars into giving out a fan favorite award and then cheated to make sure he got that fan favorite award. I guess we're all just gonna pretend that he didn't make Sucker Punch and it wasn't the worst. But I'm not here to review Sucker Punch. 2 out of 10. Now I'm here to talk about the fact that Zack Snyder's Batman cannot stop killing. I mean, what even is this face? He just killed like 20 people with a machine gun, but he looks as if they just told him the ice cream machine's broken at McDonald's. Zack Snyder likes to wave away his Batman's murderous sprees by saying it's more indirect action rather than direct action that gets these villains killed.
I perceive it as not him killing directly, but by if the bad guys are associated with the thing that happens to blow up, he would say that that's not really my problem, you know, like they shouldn't have been around that.
Like this guy's face shouldn't have been anywhere near this flying box. This guy should get a more durable head. This clumsy little fellow needs to pick a vehicle that's closer to a tank, so that when Batman shoots him and inevitably drives through the wreckage, he's got more than a 0% chance of survival. Now there are plenty more examples and I could go on, but I think at this point you probably get what I'm trying to say. And you're also probably thinking, isn't this a sculpting video? Yes it is, but I'm still not done with my critique on Zack Snyder. And I think I should mention that I don't personally have a problem with a story that explores the idea of Batman killing people. The character's been around for a very long time and new takes on him can help keep things fresh. However, Zack Snyder's version is based off Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, a comic which specifically explores the idea of Batman wanting to kill but inevitably deciding not to do so, a takeaway Zack Snyder did not seem to have.
Although I would say, you know, in the Frank Miller comic book that I that I referenced, he kills all the time.
This interview here makes me wonder if Zack Snyder ever actually read the comic, or he just sort of looked at the pictures and was like, I get it.
There's a scene taken from the graphic novel where he busts through the wall and he takes the guy's machine gun. At the end of that, he shoots the guy right between the eyes with the machine gun, one shot. Of course, I went to the gas tank, and all of my guys that I worked with were like, gotta shoot him in the head, because they're all comic book dorks.
Now that is a pretty sick burn of comic book dorks, but Zack Snyder is a comic book dork, so...
Ooh, self-burn. Those are rare.
The sequence that he's referring to is this one here, and it all boils down to this one panel. Now, I'm not going to try to argue that this image isn't pretty ambiguous, but going off the fact that his goggles are completely intact, I think it's safe to say he didn't get shot right between the eyes. But given that there's blood on the wall, I wouldn't say that this is conclusive evidence that Batman hasn't killed this man either, so if you'll allow me to draw your attention to Exhibit B. Later on in the story, a new police commissioner talks about issuing an arrest warrant for Batman and lists off the charges. Curiously, murder isn't one of them. But that still isn't enough, is it? I know what you're thinking, Peter, that's not enough. But if you'll just indulge me one last time and allow me to draw your attention to enough. So towards the end of the story, when Batman's facing off against the main antagonist, he's having this internal debate over whether or not he should just simply shoot the guy and be done with it. He inevitably decides not to because he concludes that would be crossing a line he drew for himself 30 years prior. That line being murder. Basically, the whole culmination of the story arc would be completely void if he had in fact already committed murder. Or in Zack Snyder's words,
he kills all the time.
So to sum it all up, Zack Snyder has his Batman indiscriminately kill people. He doesn't bother to explore what this would mean for the character in any substantial way, and then he's based all of this off a comic book where Batman purposefully doesn't kill anyone. Cool. I think I finally understand why people do video essays. It feels good to win an argument against yourself. I am very satisfied. Moving on. Now you probably sat there patiently waiting, thinking, when is it going to be tip time? Well, the time is now, but this ain't your grandpuppy's old tip. No. This is a top tip. And today we're talking about projection. So you might already be familiar with the method of duplicating your geometry, Z-remeshing that geometry, and then projecting it all back onto your pre-existing model. The basic idea being you get to keep all your high-res details, but now you have a lower resolution mesh, making it easier to work with. However, there is another method. Instead of duplicating your high-res mesh, you can actually just freeze your subdivision levels. If you don't have any, you can just create one, it doesn't matter. Then you can simply Z-remesh your model until you get the desired result, or you can even swap it out for a re-topoed version, so long as you do it in the correct order. Then simply add your subdivision levels, usually about 4 or 5 depending on what you need, and then unfreeze your mesh. This will automatically reproject all your high-res details onto your new mesh, and if it doesn't give you as many subdivision levels as you added, you can simply hit reconstruct until you get back down to whatever number you had. And I know what you're thinking, but Peter, why should I use this method over the one that I already use? It seems very similar, and that's easy. It tends to give better results on single-sided surfaces, but also on geometry that's either intersecting or very close in proximity to itself. Moving on. Ugh, what was that, like a minute of sculpting information? Gross. Back to some weird facts about Batman I want to tell. Time for a new segment, something that I'm calling Did You Know? The answer hopefully being no. When Mr. Freeze was first introduced, his name was actually Mr. Zero. He looked like this and nobody really liked him. He was somewhat of a throwaway villain who would show up, make a few ice-related puns, and had a backstory with all the depth of a clumsy little fellow who spilled freeze juice all over himself. At one point, he was actually killed off by the Joker and nobody really seemed to care. And then along comes Batman the Animated Series with the episode Heart of Ice. Paul Dini rewrote his origin story and turned him from a man committing crimes just for the hell of it into a scientist desperately trying to save his terminally ill wife. Couple that with an overhaul of the design by Mike Mignola, as well as an amazing vocal performance by Michael Ansaria, and we now have a character that was plucked out of relative obscurity into one of the mainstays of Batman's rogues gallery. Of course, then Joel Schumacher saw all this newfound character development and was like, I'm pretty sure I can see what you guys are trying to do here.
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age!
He also did Bane.
It is the size of your gun that counts. Gun!
Good times. Now hopefully you've been following along, doing your own Batman sculpt in the background, and now we're both ready to reveal our final. 3, 2, 1... Wow, what a lot of fun that was, and yours looks great. Make sure you tune in next week where I dress up as a horse and try to take out first place in the Kentucky Derby.